Okay, I think we are ready to begin the meeting. So if everybody in the room could take their seats, and everybody online, if you could mute, check your mute. Okay, just a little bit of technical business. I am able to see hand raises on those of you participating in WebEx. So if you'd like to speak, please raise your hand and we can call on you in the room. Make sure you log into your microphone and hit your request to speak button if you'd like to speak during the board meeting. When we're ready to take a vote, we'll call for votes in the boardroom first, and then we'll call out board members who are online individually for their vote, a yes or no vote. I believe online we have board member Belknap. Are you present?
Yes.
Thank you. Chair Huntsman.
Yes.
Board member Bolter.
Yes.
Okay, are there any other board members online? Okay, in the room we have board member Newell, board member Cannon, board member Davis, board member Haynes, board member Gravitt, board member Lear, board member Earl, board member Marsh, and board member Hanson. Okay. We'll begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, and board member Mark Marsh will lead us in that.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our board member message this morning is board member Janet Cannon. Go ahead.
Okay, so I was thinking a lot about back to school and about how challenging back to school has been for all of us in this time of a pandemic. And it made me think to look back 102 years ago and see what school was like during the Spanish flu pandemic of 1918. So I'm going to just take a few minutes and show you how the Spanish flu compares to COVID-19. In 1918, no one knew what a virus was. There were no antibiotics, no antiviral drugs. What they have in common is Spanish flu and COVID are very infectious respiratory diseases that cause fever, coughing, aches, and can lead to pneumonia, and they can either be mild or fatal. These two diseases are very different, but both are novel viruses. And when novel viruses hit a human population, it takes quite a bit of time for us to understand and develop a treatment for them because previously they've been unknown. And you can see that in Wisconsin, they were closing schools and theaters in 1918. So what did school kids look like in 1918? They looked a lot like they look in 2020. Even though they didn't have the knowledge of exactly what they were dealing with, they knew enough to have ban travel, to quarantine people, to social distance, to try to limit contact. And this was very tricky because the United States was fighting World War I and sending soldiers all over the world. What was happening with schools in 1918? It was what was known as the Progressive Era, and schools were being reformed. They emphasized and taught hygiene in school. They established school lunch programs. They enacted child labor laws so the children couldn't work, but they could go to school. They made school attendance compulsory, and when Mississippi in 1918 passed mandatory attendance It was the last state in the Union to do so. So all the other, I think there were 48 states at that time, had mandatory school attendance. And they built playgrounds and promoted outside education for children. In 1918, President Woodrow Wilson enacted what was called the Children's Year. The U.S. was engaged in fighting World War I, and the president was concerned that they were looking for young people to draft, and so many of their recruits were not healthy enough to serve in the draft. So he created a child welfare campaign to aid maternal and child health, to document the effects of poverty on ill health, to reduce school dropout rates, and to address the needs of orphans and delinquents. And interestingly enough, in April 1919, Wilson went to the Versailles Peace Conference to negotiate the end of World War I. And at that conference, Wilson collapsed, and they believed that he was weak from Spanish influenza, which was rampant in Paris at that time. What else was new in schools? School nurses. Absenteeism fell by 90% within 6 months of the first school nurses coming on the job in 1902, and by 1914, New York City schools had 400 nurses. Rather than send six students home where they would miss school and get no treatment, nurses cared for children's illnesses and provided their families with health information. After a study showed that school nurses cut absences in half, more and more cities funded school nurses. And by 1914, nearly 500 cities employed school-based medical professionals. In 1918, school nurses gave students a degree of safety that would not have been possible otherwise. And medical personnel had the opportunity to educate children and their parents about how to be healthy. So when the pandemic hit, it hit hardest in October and November of 1918, most cities closed their schools for 4 months or more. But New York decided to keep their schools open. And here's why. In 1918, New York had almost 1 million school children, and 75% of them were living in tenements. The students in the tenement districts, schools were clean, well-ventilated environment where they had teachers, nurses, and doctors, and they could be taken care of much better there. If students had a fever, someone from the health department would take them home. I thought of Scott Hansen and his concern about students riding home on the bus when they were sick. So in this case, the health department personnel would take those students home. They would go in and judge whether the home conditions were suitable for the sick child to be isolated and get care, and if not, they were sent to a hospital. And the health department required families of the children recovering at home to either have a family physician or use the services of a public health doctor at no charge. What a wonderful thing they were doing. Chicago's kept schools open during the pandemic. They had 500,000 kids, and they thought, well, we'll keep these kids off the street and away from infected adults. But they knew that fresh air was important. So even though it was winter, they overheated the schoolrooms, and they opened all the windows. And you can see the little kids sitting here with their hats and their coats in the open windows in Chicago. But parents in Chicago were so concerned about the pandemic that they coined a phrase called flu phobia, and parents kept their children home. At least 50% of the children in Chicago stayed home, and absenteeism was so great that it really didn't matter, they said, if schools were open. That was a great way to social distance. So while New York and Chicago kept schools open, the most successful way of attacking the pandemic in 1918 was to do quarantining, isolation, close schools, and ban public gatherings. The Spanish flu killed 50 million people worldwide. It's killed 675,000 Americans. In fact, 1/3 of the American population came down with this disease. The life expectancy in 1918 and 1919 was 11 years less because of the Spanish flu. What are we looking at today? Today in the United States, we have over 6 million cases of coronavirus compared with 50 million worldwide in the Spanish flu epidemic. And we have experienced 184,000 deaths. In Utah, we have, this is as yesterday, we have 52,500 cases and 410 deaths. So, yes, we are in a unique time, and it is a concern for all of us. But yesterday I was looking at Facebook, and I found this on Sean Newell's Facebook post. And I thought it was the perfect way to end this little presentation. I pray that September, October, November, and December are months filled with good news, blessings, growth, new opportunities, healing, and love. Amen.
Thank you, Board Member Cannon. Okay, next is our employee recognition. Superintendent Sydney Dixon presenting the Employee of the Month.
Thank you, Vice Chair Cummins. We had a wonderful Employee of the Month celebration virtually, and normally we would gather in my office for pictures. We would hand out the parking pass and the 8 hours of administrative leave, and while the parking pass is not real helpful, we were able to have a wonderful celebration, and so I'd like to introduce you to Tracy Peterson. If you can, Jeff, maybe get that picture up. Tracy works in the finance section, and she was nominated for many things, but she is an amazing employee who has been responsible for helping people get through grants management. And if you've heard anything about this system, it's a wonderful system to help us in many ways, but it's cumbersome to learn at first, and it can be very time consuming to get everything in first round while you're learning the system. And Tracy is known for being a problem solver, and she troubleshoots, and she is just praised and heralded by so many employees in our organization and people out in the field. And she is just very, very professional and kind and patient, and everyone loves her. You just hear nothing but praise about her. And it makes people feel much calmer when they're trying to get into grants management, knowing that Tracy's always there to help. But outside of grants management, she's just one of those consummate problem-solving employees. So I don't know, Jeff, if you can pull up the picture of the virtual meeting so you can see Tracy's face. We told her she could get out of being in front of you today, but that's our Employee of the Month, Tracy. So Jeff, I don't know if we're...
When I pull up the photo, it only goes gray on the screen, so unfortunately I cannot get it to show.
Okay, thank you. Well, she's very lovely, and we don't want you to think that she looks like a gray screen. So we'll send that out to you. So congratulations to Tracy, and she still gets those 8 hours that we're going to challenge her to take at some point, and a few other little goodies. And we're very grateful for Tracy and other employees like her.
Everyone check
Janet needs
your
to mute her
mute.
computer.
I'm sorry. What do you want me to do?
I would like to reiterate that Tracy's not an alien.
Okay, are we clear? Okay. Next, we'll go to Michelle Watts with new employee introductions.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. We have new employees. These are new employees that have been hired since the July 2020 board meeting. There are 7 of them. Jeff, do you have the slideshow?
I am showing the slideshow on my screen. Can everyone see it?
I don't see it.
Okay, hold on just a moment.
That's it. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, next slide. Oh, Krista Hotelling is a K-3 literacy specialist. She's from Pennsylvania, worked at the Syracuse Arts Academy as an assistant principal, and is excited for the opportunity. Next slide. Tracy Deventer, Director of Utah Center for Continuous School Improvement. Previous work at the Ogden School District as a principal. And she is thrilled to focus her efforts on helping students and teachers and schools grow and improve. Next slide. Alicia Romero. She is a new executive secretary in teaching and learning from Miami and worked at the Huntsman Cancer Institute as an executive assistant. She's dedicated and driven with a great personality and a great sense of humor. Christine Elegante. She's a new K-3 literacy specialist from Farmington. Worked in the Davis School District as a first grade teacher. She says to find joy in everything you do, every job, relationship, home. It's your responsibility to love it or change it. Quote by Chuck Palahniuk. Janet Hansen, UPIP specialist. She's from Utah. Previously worked at the Ranches Academy as a special education director. Loves the outdoors, reading a good book, hanging out with family, and playing with my dogs. Oh, I love those things. Next one. Manera English is an office assistant 2 from California and worked previously as a personal assistant. And she says, I'm only as good as my weaknesses. Next slide. Teresa Harvington, digital teaching and learning program specialist from Bountiful, Utah, and was previously a Davis school teacher in STEM for 18 years. I think I can. I think I can. I know I can. I like that quote. I think that is all. So welcome to our new employees that have started since July. We wish you the best.
Thank you very much, Michelle. And
Thank you.
welcome to everyone. Okay, next is the acknowledgement of student art. Kathy Jensen. This is something we've missed the last few months.
Thank you, Chair Cummins. I have missed it too, and I'm happy to be here. Today we are presenting the artwork from the 48th Annual Utah All-State High School Show that is sponsored by the POPS program and Springville Museum of Art. It seems like a very long time ago that many of you went with us to the museum to select art for purchase. And this is our first opportunity to hang the 6 pieces and share them with you and with our public. The first one on the east wall is by Cadence Lewis from Westlake High School. And she has titled her piece Reach, and it is a sketch with graphite. I love how that expresses the experience of our children as they reach for new things and experience and touch the world around them. The next piece, Valeria Vioral from Highland High School. She was a senior last year. Her piece is titled Euphoric Bliss. She received honorable mention in the 2nd Congressional District and also the USB e-Purchase Award. If you ever go and ask for a tour from a representative or a senate typically you are taken on a little tram in a tunnel from the office building to the basement of the Capitol. And in that tunnel, each representative has the opportunity to have one piece of work from their state. And for Utah, those 4 pieces are chosen by the representatives, and they hang there for a year. So it's really an honor, and if the Utah pieces are always outstanding, just saying. So she was an honorable mention in the 2nd Congressional District. Euphoric Bliss is almost saying the same thing twice without being truly redundant. I think this represents my piece because it's almost too much, but the diversity in styles, textures, and media gives it a separation to the structure of the body. With the saturated colors, I wanted to represent the energy of an unexpected happiness attack. The craziness becomes an escape when everything around becomes overwhelming. This project was a challenge to myself because it involved many techniques that required dedication. It also evolved in the time of creation because I would be exposed to comments, classes, and constant revision. So many life skills taught in that one piece. The next piece is by Nikayla Nilsson from Skyview High School, and she has titled her piece Unexpected, and it is watercolor. For my own choice painting, I really wanted to paint something I love, and I've always loved fish. I have multiple fish tanks in my room, and that's when I decided I would bring one of the previous sketches to life in watercolor painting. This was my first large-scale watercolor painting, and I really enjoyed doing it. The hardest part for me was getting an even wash for the big water areas. On the west wall, Peter Caroon from West High School, also a senior. It is a digital photography titled Daydream. This photo is meant to illuminate how our mind and imagination can be a powerful tool when we think beyond what's real. Everyone gets lost in their thoughts, pondering upon their own imagination and venturing outside reality. But there's a great beauty in a world which we imagine because it is a world unique to each individual, full of desire and creativity. Maybe this daydreaming does not cause us to lose touch with reality, but rather guides us toward the reality to which we aspire. The next piece, the portrait, is by Jack Beck from Spanish Fork High School, and he has titled this Refined. I wanted to show through my piece the opposition that you can have in a painting. I wanted to show through dark, abstract, and sharp shapes to show a more refined focal point, and to use them to make the girl seem lighter, defined, and more smooth, thus making the piece a better example of fine art and classical portraiture. Finally, Hunter Nielsen, Lehigh High School, grade 11, and he has titled his piece Spirit Mountain. He also received honorable mention in the 4th Congressional District. I love to mountain bike, and so do my parents and my family. When my parents asked me to paint a picture for our living room, I guess it's not going to be in their living room. I guess it's going to be here instead. I knew that biking in the mountains of Utah would be the perfect thing, from the snowy peaks to the red rock. And so in this artwork, I captured the way I see the outdoors and what I feel when I go biking. I have provided you over here on the table with a catalog of the pieces that were selected to be in the catalog from the show last spring. And then there is a second piece. When the pandemic hit, our POPs organizations had to pivot and be flexible in their delivery system. And Springville Museum of Art decided to do Up Close and Far Away. They invited all school children across the state to represent their experiences and their feelings during the pandemic in art. They received 339 different students, 89 different schools. Their responses were vulnerable, thoughtful, and clever. Many were poignant and reflected the students' grief, frustration, and loneliness. Other entries focused on the unexpected benefits of the moment. Together, they communicate the varied experiences of Utah students in 2020. So I would encourage you to look at this with the help of Dr. Christelle Estrada and our friends at UEN. Many of these pieces are being videoed with the artists and put to an original composition. So we'll have a music video of the pandemic pieces that we hope to share with you soon.
Thank you very much. Next, we have our education highlight, Jeff Van Holten.
Hello, everybody. I'm sad I can't be here in person with you all. It looks like it's a fun time. I hope you're all doing well. I wanted to just quickly say I'm very excited to be doing the education highlight now. I'm excited to have that added to my job duties. I'm going to introduce very quickly the State Director of Utah History Day, Wendy Rex Atzet. And Wendy, I apologize if I mispronounced your name. She is going to introduce our education highlight today. We'll pass it over to Wendy.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Jeffrey, you said my name perfectly. So I am a historian at the Utah Division of State History, where I direct Utah's National History Day program, and we're celebrating Utah History Month in September. So I want to invite all of you board members and attendees at this meeting to tune in this month to our annual conference on Utah history. It's free, and the whole thing is online, and our theme this year is Rights and Responsibilities, and that's in honor of women's suffrage, the women's suffrage anniversaries we're celebrating this year. So you can link into our program and join any sessions at our website, which is history.utah.gov. National History Day, or for short NHD, has been operating in Utah since 1980. It was created at Utah State University, and you probably are more familiar with the name Utah History Fair because it went under that name for over 30 years. In 2014, the program was moved to the Division of State History, and at that time the name was changed to bring it in line with our affiliation with the national organization. So NHD is a year-long academic program. Our curriculum supports project-based learning in the classroom, and then that culminates in a series of competitions that run through the spring and summer every year. And at our contest, students present their work in one of our 5 creative categories, which are exhibits, documentaries, performances, papers, and websites. NHD is all about active and engaged learning. Rather than memorizing disconnected facts and forgetting them as soon as the test is over, our students actually do history. They do what historians do. They choose a topic that matters to them and they explore it in depth. They analyze historical documents, images, artifacts. They learn how to identify credible sources of information on the internet, a valuable skill. They investigate multiple perspectives. They draw evidence-based conclusions based on real historical sources. In the process, they meet many of Utah's core standards, not just in social studies, but also in English language arts and other disciplines. And one of the things I love the most about this program is that it really allows students to have their own aha moments about how the world they know is the product of choices and actions that were made by people in the past. And so they come to see how and why history is relevant to them. So we have amazing teachers using this program in rural, suburban, and urban schools from San Juan County up to Logan and Box Elder County. About 20% of our schools are Title I or have high percentages of students who qualify for free and reduced lunch. And our students range from English language learners to general ed to honors and gifted students. Last year, over 5,000 students did an NHD project at the local level across Utah. And when the schools closed in March, we were right in the middle of our spring contest season, but we quickly pivoted our remaining contests to a 100% virtual format. So 422 students competed at our state contest in April, and 57 Utah kids went on to compete at the national level this past June. And we have spent the last 6 months preparing to support our teachers and our students in their online and blended learning during the upcoming school year. This program can work very well as an online or blended program, as well as a physical brick and mortar kind of program. So now it is my great pleasure to introduce to you Madeleine Christensen. She is a 4-year NHD veteran, and she has become a true historian. Madeleine's in 11th grade this year at Orem High School, and she began doing NHD as a 7th grader at Lake Ridge Junior High. She's explored a wide range of topics through her NHD projects over the years. She studied women during the Revolutionary era. She studied Prohibition. She studied a female spy of the French Resistance during World War II. And today she's going to talk to you about her work on the Ghost Army. It's a project that's near and dear to her heart. And also her experience really is a great example of how history and civics are truly, two sides of the same coin. So with that, I will turn it over to Madeleine.
Thank you so much. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you, Wendy, for this amazing opportunity and introduction. I'm really excited to talk about my experience with NHD and really how it's shaped my life and how it's shaping my future. So this will be my 5th year doing NHD, and I've gone on to state every year I've done the competition, and to nationals all but 1 year. NHD has taught me a lot of valuable skills and how to research and cite sources, conduct interviews, create and argue a thesis, time management, and also just how to channel my creativity into something academic. And through learning about history, I've just had a greater appreciation for the people and events that have come before me, and they are shaping my present, and I'm able to learn from their examples and make my future better. And so the project that Wendy said, like my Ghost Army project, which I would say is probably the peak of my projects, it's the Ghost Army of World War II, which was a deceptive unit that used measures such as inflatable tanks, radio tricks, and sound effects to fool the Germans. They saved thousands of lives without ever firing a shot. And this project really is special to me because my 102-year-old great-grandfather, which is seen in the picture, was a member of the Ghost Army. And the first I heard about the Ghost Army was from my grandmother. And I didn't believe her at first because I have never heard of the Ghost Army in any of my history classes or any of anywhere, not online. But as I began to research, I found it was very real, but it was still very unknown. So I had the amazing opportunity to actually travel to Europe and follow in the Ghost Army's footsteps. And so there is me in the countryside of France where the Ghost Army did Operation Elephant. And I interviewed 8 of the 15 Ghost Army veterans and have become really close with a lot of them. I basically have adopted 8 other grandfathers, and they're really close and dear to my heart. My project went on to the national competition, and I drove my project out to DC, and on my way back, I was able to visit many of the Ghost Army veterans I have interviewed. And my project at the national competition actually won the National World War II History Award from the National World War II Museum. And that is the only national honor I have had with any of my projects. So this project is very special to me. I wasn't close to my grandfather before, but now because of this project, I know and I love him, and he knows he loves me. And it wasn't like that before, but now I talk to him often and I visit him and he knows my name. And it's been interesting because his own sons and daughters didn't know what he did during the war. And I've been able to teach them about his military service through my efforts. And the Ghost Army wasn't declassified until 1996, so that was 50 years of secrecy that my grandfather never told his wife or any of his children. The men were sworn to secrecy and couldn't tell anyone, and these men were never recognized because of that. According to the U.S. government and Army, the Ghost Army never existed. I became really passionate about getting them recognized, and I have actually been very involved in lobbying Congress to get them awarded with a national Congressional Gold Medal. And so I have been to DC twice, in last October and in February, and I have continued to email and try to do virtual lobbying throughout the summer, and I've gotten quite a lot of co-sponsors, and we have to get 2/3 of the House and Senate, but right now we have about 170 co-sponsors in the House. So I've helped it progress a lot, and because of the project, I've had a lot of amazing opportunities. Like I said, the project won the National World War II History Award. Congressman Ben McAdams entered my great-grandfather and me into the congressional record, and we were able to go in his office for the last 4th of July. And my grandfather, that was really the first honor he's been given in his life for his military service. I have been featured on C-SPAN, ABC2 News, KSL Radio, the front page of Deseret News, and Valor magazine. But all of these opportunities were given to me because of NHD. I never could have dreamed of doing these without this opportunity to just research and learn more. And the National World War II Museum actually opened the first ever Ghost Army exhibit. And the first picture was me and my great-grandfather attending that. We were able to fly to New Orleans and celebrate the first Ghost Army exhibit with 2 other veterans. And it was really a unique experience. And because of that, because of this whole experience, this year I have won the Billy Michael Leadership Award for Utah. Well, the national one, but that was also World War II Museum, and I am actually currently interning for Congressman John Curtis, and I'm just, because of NHD, I've never could have dreamed of all these things happening. I couldn't have dreamed I could ever reach this high, but I suddenly am here, and I didn't even realize I was. And National History Day has really given a purpose to my life, and it's helped me in ways that I didn't realize it would, and continues to help me in completely unrelated subjects. The story I've learned, I've carried with me as a torch, and they've become part of me and part of my legacy, and I've become part of their legacy. And I just really want to get them remembered, and that's with all of them, not even just the Ghost Army. These stories are my examples, and they're my history and my future, and it's literally has shaped my life, and it's made me mature and insightful and analytical, and I find pride and satisfaction and motivation through my projects. NHG has also helped me through grief and mourning and harder things, because some of the veterans I've met with have passed away, and it's been hard, but that just pushes me further to get them recognized and get them the honor they deserve, because they really do deserve it. They were incredible. And both my NHG and my lobbying has made me a lot more aware of the world, and it's helped me learn current events, which I've never been very current, but now I'm starting to get that way, and it lets me know more about my country and what rights I have as a citizen. And most of all, this has just given me a work ethic I will never shake, in a family that has never been so close. And I love it all, and it really is part of who I am, and I'm proud of what I've accomplished. And so I yield my time to questions.
Are there any questions from board members?
Would you like to see my project? I have it up in my living room with me, so.
Yeah, we have one question, Board Member Marsh, and then we'll let you show your project. Thank you.
And I had was, as you look back through history, how were you able to gather up the information that you needed to put this together when it was such a kind of a secret society?
So it was declassified in 1996, and so there have been a couple resources. It was hard, but I believe my annotated bibliography had over 80 sources. So because I went on the tour of Europe, the historian that's the president of the Ghost Army Legacy Project was leading the tour, and he was able to help direct me to some sources. I was able to use, there's about 5 books published, and a documentary and some secondary sources, but a lot of my information actually came from the primary sources. So my great-grandfather had a scrapbook, even though some of the stuff he kept was technically illegal because he wasn't allowed to take diary entries or anything. But I was able to use his information. I was able to interview him and the 7 other Ghost Army veterans, and just really look at the official history and the operation maps and these primary sources, and just create my argument based on what the information those gave me. And so why don't I move this over here? So this was my project, and I actually had a shadow box with all the patches and handbooks that my great-grandfather had. And the Ghost Army never had their own patch, so a lot of the patches show the story of where they were, what division they imitated, and just a lot of the ways they had to become part of the Ghost Army. But my projects, a lot of my projects have a physical representation of something, and the Ghost Army is very secret. So the way I showed that was I actually had this black light that you would flip on, and I would have invisible ink writing that would show the secrets of the Ghost Army, and just a way to show the deception that they had. And that was probably a large crowd pleaser, but yeah. Any other questions?
There are no other questions. Thank you very much for your presentation. We appreciate your time and your efforts and what you've accomplished. Thank you very much for joining us today. That's an applause if you can't hear it. So. Thank you. Was there anything else on this, Jeff?
Okay, that's it. Thank you all.
Okay. Thank you for joining us, Madeleine. Thank you very much. And thank you, Wendy.
Thank you.